All right, next item on our agenda is policies, page 128.
So we had a policy council meeting. Only Mr. Cindy was able to attend. Mr. Walsh was out of town. We went through some revisions on 890, as well as you'll see later in the packet first reads on this press packet 79. In regards to 890, I looked at Mr. Welch's version that he submitted to the board at the last board meeting. I also, at the board's request, sent the policy that Mr. Welch submitted, as well as what the advisory council submitted previously for legal counsel, and I included that general letter in there. He provided Glenbrook's District 225 example of their policy, and more or less after talking to him and looking at his letter, he said that the board more or less, not to summarize, I know you can all read that, but more or less the board has the authority to create the policy as a detail as they want to create it. I think the thing that he's referencing in there is that the more you require, the more we have to be able to support at the building level and be able to probably work through and support our groups. The more things you require from them, you're probably going to have somebody at the high school that could work with them to help generate those websites or create those forms or find out how to properly file and where they can seek insurance and some of those things. So he said, the board definitely has the authority to do what was in that original policy and or what was suggested by Mr. Welch. What I did after that, and after a meeting with Mr. Cindy and just collecting some thoughts, I provided another example of policy 890. And what I did with this one, and it's the one that has written on it 6712, but I took pretty much the original one that the policy council originally suggested that did not get approved by the board, and I added a few more points on there. And I think the main one would be number 7 and number 8. Number 7, an agreement to maintain a public website that provides, and I think that's some of the transparency and reporting that Mr. Welch was looking for in his version, and some of the concerns I heard from the board, and that making sure that the organizations that are using the Riverside Brookfield name and logo are transparent and properly reporting. So I drafted this version. I thought we could discuss it some more tonight. Tim McGinnis did check with our insurance company on that whole errors and omissions, and I'll let him touch on that real quick in regards to insurance.
The PTO, or the patrons and the boosters, are covered under our general liability, and they're also covered under the errors and omissions policy, or school legal liability. They basically said that certificates of insurance are not necessarily required, but they're certainly recommended that we get those. The RBEF is not covered. They're covered under our general liability, but they're not covered under the errors and omissions if their officers do something that would fall under that. So we need a certificate of insurance from the foundation.
Did they tell you why 2 are covered and 1 isn't? Is it because of their corporate structure?
It has to do with the amount of money that foundations generally get involved in, and the things that the officers are doing with the money and that type of thing.
Now, they did say that boosters and patrons, it's not a bad idea for them to have
Right.
additional insurance naming us.
They said it was a good idea to have that, yes. So that's why we've left it in the facility agreement that they have to provide it along with everybody else.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this?
No.
Anybody? Michael?
I know the last time somebody might have said that in the past they had somebody attend the meetings of these clubs, and if you look at that Glenbard, they had the principal.
Yeah, attending.
In your revised thing, we're not doing anything like that, right?
Well, we have a person set up as a delegate to each council. Art works with the boosters. Pam works with the patrons and attends their meetings. And then I've worked with the, over the last several months, with the Ed Foundation. between Pam and I, we try to get to their meetings or serve as their contact. The only reason I've served a little bit with their contact is because of the Alumni Achievement Dinner and that running out of the district office. Do we regularly attend their meeting and sit through the entire meeting? Art and Pam do with the boosters and the patrons.
But we're not requiring that. We just have that in
Right.
place.
We have somebody in place so that they have a specific person, hey, we're having trouble with this. They could have a contact at the school to reach out to, and that they can provide them some additional support or get answers for them.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's more of a comment on the insurance. And if you see Glenbards, they don't require their boosters to have insurance. And, you know, again, any of us would say, if you're in the business, you try to get the extra insurance because it doesn't hurt. But obviously a broker's going to do it because somebody's going to get paid. But basically, since they're covered, we're requiring them to buy insurance covering the same losses in however much it costs. They're not expensive policies. It might be $1,000 or $2,000, but it's still in essence taking money out of their coffer that they're going to, in theory, give back to the school. So all we're doing is paying additional premium, you know, between the two groups, paying additional premiums for insurance that, to anybody's knowledge, really has never been used. I mean, we asked before, there's not, you know, any institutional knowledge that we've had to make claims or significant claims for them. So, you know, again, compared to what it is, I think this is much better. It's not the end of the world, but I really don't see the value of requiring them to have insurance if we already have insurance and it doesn't cost more.
Are they only insured when they're in our building, is under our insurance? Or are they insured at like an outside event?
And that was my original concern, like even though the golf outing, I would assume that they'll be covered under the golf course's insurance. In the event
Probably
that something
not.
like that happened, that's why we figured to having the additional coverage.
Again, it's not the end of the world to me. If that, people want to agree to that, I just, you know, think it's just a little bit of an unnecessary expense, and all it does is give money to insurance broker. It probably doesn't provide really additional amount of protection to us, because if it covers the same thing, only one of the insurers is going to pay anyway. They're not both going to pay for the same loss, so.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to find out and have insurance for what it doesn't cover.
But you talked to them, right, Kevin? Like boosters, they said they didn't have a problem with getting
I met
insurance.
with the new president, Tony Garvey. They
Okay.
were pursuing it, and I believe the PTO, now that the patrons had joined the PTO, they were looking into
Okay.
insurance through the PTO, the national PTO
Okay, they
organization.
probably could get it pretty cheaply through the organization, too.
There's also riders, so they can get general insurance covered under the school. We ought to have some information on that. But there are special event riders, because patrons, when they would have the fashion show, it was very inexpensive just to have a
Right.
one occasion
Right.
Sure.
rider,
We-
as
we-
opposed to paying a whole.
We did provide,
policy.
from our insurance, in a quote, a rider for the booster club for that golf outing when this
Right.
conversation all started.
Right.
And what they recognized was the $500 or $850 that it was going to cost for one event. It wasn't worth it, that they were better off getting a general liability policy for, you know, for the entire year or annual. And it was only a few $100s more, and that was better than trying to, because we did suggest that to them. And I even I had Tim talk to our group to see if, you know, we can provide the best rate, but it was to them that felt it wasn't worth cutting right into the profit directly.
I have one other concern. The number 7, as we discuss it and think about it, when we come back possibly, we put in here this agreement to maintain a public website with all this information. If we ask them to be a 501c3, they already have to have these documents. You know, a school district collects tax dollars. Families they have to pay tax dollars, and so it is their right to see how the money is being spent, put up on a website. But nobody has to join patrons. Nobody has to join boosters. People join voluntarily. And I think it should be up to the members of the organization to ask the organization, what they want. I don't think it should be up to us to demand what they show, since it's a voluntary organization supported by voluntary dollars. I mean, we can require it to be a 501, and then all this other minutia should be up to the organization and the members who pay to be part of it.
Yeah, I would probably defer your question to the board. I put that in based off of the original policy not passing, and then the, some components of what I saw from Mr. Welch's example. So I think that's probably best for the board to discuss.
I view it as someone making a donation to an organization, and this just sort of ensures it. And since we're sort of using our name as a school for people to donate to, I think we have a right to request this. So I think it's a little bit different from just a pure voluntary organization.
Yeah, but you have a choice to join boosters, and you would go, when you're in your booster meeting, you would ask the leadership in boosters for that information.
No, I think that's, my point is that someone's going to join the boosters or donate the $30, that they should, this is a way to ensure that, there's oversight.
But I don't think it's our purview.
Well, they're using our name, so it is. That's my opinion.
So what if boosters, how would you feel if they said, well, we just won't say we're Riverside Brookfield Booster. What if we just say we're the Booster Club? And we're going to meet, and they could meet here with those fees, and they could run all these events and have very little of this. And they can give all the money.
No one would join.
Well, there's a certain value to the RB name.
Yeah.
It has
No one
clout.
would join.
And it has a great deal of moxie to donate to something that has RB's flag.
We have the art club. We have the music club.
I know.
Do they
But
have to
there's
do all
an
this?
implication of association, though.
Those are all, from what I understand, Laura, the art and the music, like the fine arts boosters and some of that is all part of patrons.
Well, no.
Committees of patrons.
That's what patrons told us.
That's
Laura,
what we
did
were
you
up.
read the footnote that was put in, that's going to not be carried with the policy? Boosters Club present potential liabilities to a school district beyond loss of funds because they are seldom properly organized, they're generally not incorporated or other, I mean, there was this footnote that I think Times put in here, right?
Yes.
No, that was put by the IASP.
Or is it the ISB?
IASB.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's not us.
But it's kind of giving you the reason why, with that association with the name, there is a potential. They hold themselves out as fundraisers for the school, things like that. So that's why
And
this
if they're,
additional cover, so.
and if they're a good organization, they want to advertise on that website as part of the advertising, and part of the website can be that information too that shows that, hey, All right, any other questions on
Well,
this?
Laura, I'd like to say something.
Okay.
I'm somewhat in agreement with you. I think it's a little bit more than we'd ask, but you know what? It's a middle ground from it's much better than what we had before. If people are willing to agree to and adopt this policy requiring a website with some information that we know they have, they just have to post it and require an insurance, because I think the cost would be pretty minimal to them. I think it's a huge step in the right direction compared to what we were considering before.
Well, the fact that we were considering something probably beyond what was our purview doesn't make it.
But Laura, it isn't. I mean, you read this, the ISAB is suggesting that may want to have the club operate under school's authority, i.e. activity accounts.
I mean, we have the lawyers.
We don't want to go that far to,
Well, I
we
would say-
agree
I
we don't
would
want to go
say-
that far to have, to
These
authorize
are
checks
purview.
out their door, but there's purview under here, according to ISAB.
Are we going to monitor this? I mean, the
That
school's
would be
been here for
Kevin's
over 100
responsibility.
years. I'm just throwing that, we've been here for 100 years. In 2008, we graduated the 100th class. Some of us had children walking across that stage. And for 100 years, we didn't do this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So,
But it doesn't really matter. I mean, we've got
and
to
we've
look.
never had an incident.
But it's an irrelevant argument. The lawyer said it's fine, the IASB says it's fine. In terms of like monitoring this, my question is, Kevin, shouldn't you put like a date, like when they're supposed to like provide this?
Well, we talked about that at the last meeting, that it's tough to put a date because some use a fiscal year calendar, some use the
Calendar.
date calendar, annual calendar. So we would set up so that they would work with myself in the business office to just make sure that they had their, and we're gonna, as the attorney put in there, we're gonna have to give them some time and some support to help them establish some of these things and work with them on some of this. So I gotta imagine there's gonna be, we would have to allow a window for them to meet this. I know the Booster Club is already using a link off of our webpage. I think the patrons might. It's just a matter now of getting their documents scanned in and having them sent to us.
Dr. Skinkus, who's the go-to liaison within the administration that the parent groups go to?
That's to be determined right now.
Okay.
I mean, as I said earlier, the boosters work directly with Art.
Yeah.
But like when Tony Garvey, the new booster president, needed some information on those activity passes, the final, he sat with myself and Mr. McGinnis and we finalized that.
Yeah, I think once we streamline and this gets consolidated, it'd be good to have a go-to guy
Sure.
or
Right.
woman, lady.
Well, they'll all have an administrator assigned to
Who
them.
can help them along. You know,
Right.
some of these people, this isn't what they do for a profession, and if they need help in generating these 990s and things like that, maybe somebody here could help them.
Sure.
Just help them through, that's all.
Especially setting it up, because once
Yeah,
it's there.
setting it up. You know, I think that would be a good trade-off for.
Now, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, every year they have to file a 990, correct?
If they meet the
Technically.
requirements, yes.
Yeah.
So technically, what we were thinking is, you know, when you're done filing a 990, bring us a copy and we
Yeah.
scan it in, and
Yeah.
or they could learn to scan it in and just
Put it on their
put it
website.
on their website.
And the go-to liaison would help them along if there's something missing and so
And
on.
we did not originally, the way I wrote this was not so that the administration would maintain their website for them.
No, I'm just saying
We'll
that
be
they
here to
would-
provide some support and to get them information when they need it.
I'm just saying, point them
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah,
That's all.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And if they have
Make
to
sure
file
that-
a 990, the administration wouldn't be helping them do that either.
No, not putting on figures in.
Okay, any other discussions on this?
Yeah, I guess my question is, maybe I missed something, but I know Tim's happy with this. It's sort of a compromise, I guess. Mike, what's your feeling on this? Because it's not quite the same as what you presented.
I'm okay tonight. I need to digest it a little more.
Okay.
You know, some of what I had was a little more stringent. You know, 30 days, 60 days after you file the return, you should post it. My idea was, by them putting it on their website, they're not submitting paper copies to the district, and the district's not maintaining these files. The district can just go online and look to see if things are up to date. And perhaps, you know, they come once a year and update us as to what they're doing and how things are going.
Okay. Anything else?
We
Kev-
will have this posted on the website, right, for public comment. That should be the procedure with, because these are board policies. These are policies that we as board members create to run the school. And I believe the procedure is that we post them if there should be any public comment.
If you go to the high school website under the Board of Education tab, under the press packet for tonight's meeting, there's 206 pages or more of items available for the public to look at,
Including this.
Including this.
including this.
If we're going to consider, we're going to, you did recommend and not voted on this tonight, Kevin,
Correct.
so I assume we're going to consider it for voting in the next meeting or soon. Are you going to have a chance to talk to the three, or have their liaison talk to them and, you know, I mean.
We're gonna try to.
See if there's any, concern.
Yeah, it's, I mean, we talked to the boosters last week.
Okay.
Met
good.
with them personally, told them what we were thinking about. Their new leadership, I guess in the last 2 years, they started to do a lot of this stuff, became the 501c3, so they already think they have a lot of this in place, and they didn't see this as being a major issue. I think where you're going to start upsetting people that are donating their time is when you start putting specific timelines, at 30 to 60, you start holding them like,
Yeah.
you know, I think if we can work with them in a way that it doesn't seem like we're accusatory or micromanaging. I think they'll be okay with this, because I think this will help them keep their business in order. So when they change over leadership, when their kids graduate, they can pass this on, and it's not like they're looking for,
Totally no.
different information and trying to come up with minutes and records. And one of the comments that the Booster Club made was that, maintaining a public site like this will help them with their record keeping, because then it's not like, hey, it's in, this, who's holding on to this binder, and who has the, a lot of their stuff can be kept electronically, and very transparent, some stuff like that. So I haven't, Pam returns the 19th, so I can have her reach out with the patrons, and I could reach out to the Ed Foundation.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on our agenda.
Can I want to add one
Sure.
thing Mike just made a point of, and I think it's a good idea. I didn't see it in here about maybe an annual, not that they have to file it, but an annual presentation to the board.
Yeah, I thought I had that, and if I don't, I will go back, but I thought I had something in there where they would, on an annual basis,
I mean, it's
report.
not just for them to well, it's for them to report, but they can also ask us what we can do perhaps as a board to help them, so they have a public forum.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Well, John, the only thing, I mean, we could obviously get them to do it. Again, the problem I have with that is, we don't make department heads come and report to us. We don't make them tell us about the IHSA. I mean, we don't make our own administration come. We don't have John Passarella come once a year and say what's going on in his area, or, the other people. And again, I still think, I can't imagine if you're working with them, they wouldn't be willing to come and talk to him, probably would welcome it, but I still have a difficulty of putting those kinds of burdens on other groups that we kind of don't even do for our own staff. Just a point, but.
Tim, just let you know, we used to have department chairs present their departments.
I'd like to eventually get to that, but
Mr.
that's-
Passarella used to come every month and give us the student discipline report.
I mean, you could make it optional. That way, I'm sure they'd take advantage of it.
if you look under,
Josh, does that have to be policy? I mean, if we just say, put it on our board calendar, the calendar?
Why not put it? What's the harm of putting it here?
Well, some schools of thought believe that policy should be as succinct so that you don't constrain yourself and then put more in your procedures. But policy are your laws, and so they should be as minimalist as possible, because you want to make sure that, you hit them all. And so maybe that would be something that we'd put on our calendar, the calendar that Kevin gave us last time with the different months, and put it on a particular month where they could come and present.
under number 8, permission to use one of the above-mentioned names or logos will continue as long as on an annual basis the parent organization or booster club presents to the district and the Board of Education a copy of its annual reports. So, I mean, we have something somewhat listed in there. And I agree with Laura. I mean, when and where that occurs could be set up on our operational calendar.
That's fine, as long as 5 years from now.
John's dead in it.